Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we're calling our readings through the Johnson edition of the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We turn now to poem 102, Great Caesar Condescend. Now, I love these little short offerings. I think I've mentioned this already to you, that when we get to poem 1063, I love this line, ashes denote that fire was. There's a whole lot going on in a little poem like this, but I think it's all, for the most part, play. I think it's in jest. I said this when we did our Talks with Walt lectures of every poem of Leaves of Grass, and I think it's also true of the poetry of Emily Dickinson. Guys, I think she's having a blast writing so many of these poems. Now, obviously, there's a lot of turmoil, there's a lot of anguish in a whole lot of her poetry, and in that regards, it isn't a blast and it isn't fun. But I think in poems like this, for example, a poem that specifically was written to her brother and shared with Austen, I think she's having a great time. Now, you got to remember that Emily loved her classics, and she has great veneration for the classics while at the same time pushing against those classics in her own very, can we say it, Promethean way. Now, our assumptions, you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, you can find our playlist Talks with Walt. Chats with Emily. And I'm hopeful that you have already worked with our introductory set of comments as well as the preceding 100 poems as we now move, as we said in our last lecture, into the now second group of 100 poems in our collection. Now, this is a poem, as we said, that was shared or sent to Austen, her brother. And we've commented already on the complicated relationship between she and her brother, and of course Sue, who her brother would end up marrying. I think there's a lot of bantering that obviously went on between Emily and her bro. And it's very possible that even this poem was accompanied by a daisy. We've commented on the fact that Emily likes to play that game. And there may be even some referencing here that Emily's father, who was at times pretty severe and pretty stern, that Emily will be playing around with some of that as well. Let's enjoy the poem. Great Caesar, condescend the daisy to receive gathered by Cato's daughter with your majestic leave! Exclamation point. Now, we're going to hear about Caesar in poems 637 and 1325. Those are the only other times we're going to hear about that. And the word condescend we'll hear in 196, 564, and 1244. All three of those poems, this condescend. Now, everything to me has to do with the fact that she starts with the word great and she ends with the word majestic. She is obviously in tongue-in-cheek saying to her brother, how great, how amazing you are. Let me share this daisy with you. If you will please condescend to your lowly sister. Notice the daisy, well, you'll remember our first use of this was in poem 22, but it's used in 16 poems, so you want to pay attention to the daisy. Condescend, the daisy to receive, gathered by, notice it's Cato's daughter. Now in poem 97, you'll remember we saw the other use of Cato. Cato, of course, is that recognition of one of the sternest of the Romans. And because she's Cato's daughter, then obviously she's referencing her father, who at times was, in fact, quite stern. By the way, daughter will only get used one more time in poem 1747, right at the end of this Johnson collection. I love the satire here with the use of the word majestic, with your majestic leave. In other words, what is Emily actually saying here? I am not worthy, brother, I am not worthy. Please, please, please accept this little offering of mine. At 2A, if we're going to assign a message to this one, I think it's always okay to have fun, having a bit of satiric fun. And I think that's the point. I think Emily is just having some fun. She's just enjoying making an observation to her brother. At 2B, I love the witty tone. To her brother, as well as maybe about her father. I love the word choice of great and condescend and majestic and all of that. But at the same time, we mustn't forget that I think Emily is often, engaging in a certain level of subterfuge in her poetry. In other words, she could be saying something to her brother like, hey, don't get too big for your britches here, okay? I don't need you to think that you're that much more important than me, maybe because you're older, maybe because you're male, etc., etc. At 3A, I cannot help but think about Pope's Rape of the Lock as playing a similar kind of game. Swift's Modest Proposal obviously comes to mind. But in a more modern bent, I want to think about Judy Brody's I Want a Wife from 1971, that classic first essay of Ms. Magazine. Go back, we've given full lectures on it at learnstrong.net. It's an amazing satiric piece, and in some ways I think Brody may be channeling a little bit of Emily from poem 102. Finally, in 3B, what was a time that you had fun being witty like Emily? And of course, she's going to give you license to keep doing it, I hope. Thank you.